Hello class, this is your second video on revising Essay 2. First, a reminder that to see the comments on your rough draft, you want to click on Grades and then View Feedback. Those comments, plus your video conference that you'll do with me this week, are my chance to really help you revise your essay. So, we are starting for this video in Canvas. And notice that I have modules open and week 9 class. And we're going to start by looking at the Essay 2 assignment. We are focusing for this video on the thesis. Everything in the essay is supposed to support the thesis. And that's something that a lot of people need to work on in revising Essay 2. Everything supports the thesis. So, the first step in working on getting your essay focused in this way is to go back to the essay question. You really have to keep going back to your essay question over and over and over again. You have to read it over and over again, and you have to write a thesis that's really, really answering the essay question and answering it in a precise way. So back to the module. Let's also do a reminder about the 4 steps for revising. There. Okay. So we went over this in video number 1, so we're not going to go over it again. But I want to remind you that revising takes a long time, probably 6 hours or more. Revising step 1, read and think more. So for read and think more, your focus is not just finding stuff about the topic. Your focus is to find evidence to support your thesis. So really in the revising phase, you are looking for evidence to support your thesis. So we have the research assignment, we have going back into evicted, and your focus is looking for things that will support your thesis. Revising step 2, clarify your overall argument, improve your thesis and outline. Most people, based on the rough drafts, need to improve the thesis. So we're focusing on the thesis in this video. Back to the module. Now we're going to a document called Write a Precise Thesis that directly answers this question. All right, so this is your handout about writing a precise thesis. Make it big on the screen. We have example A and example B. We're going to focus on example A. And so, again, with writing a good thesis, you have to start with your essay question and read it over and over. So for this example, I'm using one of the questions from Essay 1. We're on Essay 2, of course. And we're using this one for the sample. So, essay question. Why is Arlene so frequently evicted? What in her life and in the world around her has led her to be in such a predicament? To support your argument, use lots of detail from Desmond as well as your own thinking. Regarding factors that have impacted Arlene, consider her past as well as things happening to her now. Consider choices she has made, but also factors beyond her control. So some people in the rough draft have what I would call a vague thesis. So vague meaning it might be on topic and it might make sense, but it needs to be more exact. So a vague thesis. Arlene is evicted so often because she's had a hard time in her life. Notice that even my vague thesis is answering the essay question, so it's on topic. It's not an off-topic thesis. But what do you mean by having a hard time in her life? So it's not very clear, and so you want to make it more precise. Now look at the example of the precise thesis. Arlene is evicted so often because she lives in poverty, she has very little education, housing assistance from the government is inadequate, and because underneath it all, American racism has a powerful effect on the lives of Arlie and other African Americans. So notice that the precise thesis is about 3 lines long and that it has different parts. This is what is going to take you time to figure out. Each part is going to be supported somewhere in the essay. So when you're working on your thesis, you're also working on the whole essay and how you're going to structure it, because each part of the thesis will have a part when you get to the essay. So again, the precise thesis is answering the essay question, and it's more exact and it has some parts to it. And that's what you want to go for your thesis for essay 2. Now I'm going back to the module and I'm going to show you one more document. So now we're going to the sample body paragraph. Bigger. Okay. So this is a sample body paragraph that we looked at before, and it's about Lenny. And at the top, we have some of the elements of good body paragraphs, a topic sentence, some background information. The details go in the middle. And then after the details, you have to do some analysis. And notice it says here, explain what the evidence shows and how it supports the thesis. Because, again, this video is all about supporting the thesis. And then the transition to the next point will be at the beginning of the next paragraph. So, again, it all starts with the essay question. So this is an essay question that we're not doing, but I made it up for this sample. So sample essay question, is Lenny a slumlord engaged in immoral or exploitative business practices, or is he a decent person doing his best to run a business in difficult circumstances? Vague thesis. Lenny does some bad things. Okay, that one's very vague. But it does answer the essay question. That's not totally off topic, but that's just kind of a starting point. It'll take a lot more work for me to figure out my precise thesis. So here's an example of a precise thesis for this essay question. Precise thesis. Lenny is knowledgeable and is an expert at trailer park management, but he never questions Tobin's unjust business model. So he is willingly engaged in immoral and exploitative business practices, even if he is a good person at times and has some empathy for tenants. So notice this thesis, it doesn't have a lot of parts like the other sample, but it's a lot more exact. And it does answer the essay question in a more precise way. So here's your precise thesis. And now we have a sample body paragraph. So let's look at that. Lenny, the manager of the trailer park, has very detailed knowledge of the parks and who lives there. So this is what you call the topic sentence, which is what I'm going to say in the paragraph. Lenny is 43 years old and lived his whole life in his trailer park in Milwaukee, Desmond 32. This is background information. It doesn't support the thesis yet, but we're setting the stage. According to Desmond, quote, Lenny knew the druggies lived mostly on the north side of the trailer park, and the people working double shifts at restaurants or nursing homes lived mostly on the south side. The metal scrappers and can collectors lived near the entrance, and the people with the best jobs, sandblasters, mechanics, congregated in the park's snobby side behind the office. Desmond 32, here's my citation. So notice I have a big quote here. You don't have to have a big quote in every paragraph, but I do here. This passage shows that Lenny not only knows his way around, but knows the subtleties of who lives where, which parts of the park are most desirable, and where the addicts live. Only a person who has been in the park a very long time would have such in-depth knowledge. So this is where I do the so-called analysis. This is my thinking about the evidence I just gave. So here's the evidence from the book. Here's me thinking about the evidence. And notice I made this a different color. I could show it green. And that's because I want to show you that not only am I doing analysis, but the analysis has to connect with the thesis. And so I color coded it. Let's go back up to the thesis. So the thesis has a couple parts, but the first part is that Lenny is knowledgeable and an expert at trailer park management. So notice that's one part of the thesis. And then this paragraph supports that part of the thesis. And so I think it's important that at the end of each body paragraph, you should see a real clear connection between what you're saying and your thesis. Probably, and of course, it will probably connect to one part of the thesis. Okay, so at the end of each paragraph, you're explaining your thinking, you're making your argument, and it connects back to your thesis. So you want to check. Who knows where this paragraph is in the essay? Maybe it's on page 4 or something. You don't want to ever forget about your thesis. You want to make sure that at the end of your paragraph, you are explaining exactly how the details you just gave support your thesis. So everything connects back to the thesis. That is it for this video. Thank you.